Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Heavenly Gates, and I'm sipping on some chamomile tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you can find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, ultramarine blue, fluorescent orange, Mars black, and chrome yellow. And of course you could switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll use for some drawing. And then I have two brushes, a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush and a number 3 round synthetic brush. And I'll refer to these as small and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you could switch those up too. Let's see, if you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same type and size of the canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting the background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are blue, orange, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a dark lavender type of color that is going to be very complementary to the rest of the painting, and it's going to provide me with a nice kind of angelic type of color to go behind these beautiful clouds and stuff. So I've pre-mixed it so you can see where I'm headed. This is the color that I'm going for. How I got to there was I used a bunch of my blue and a little bit of my orange, mixed those two together, so that's going to give me a nice kind of deep purple type of a color. And then I used a teeny tiny bit of white paint. I think I need a little bit more orange in here just to make it look similar to the other batch that I made. So a little bit more orange in there, so that's looking pretty good. And then just a teeny tiny bit of white paint. You don't need a lot of white paint. I'm just utilizing the white to make it a little bit softer and to also add a bit of better opacity to it. I like making these background colors with the colors that I'll be using later on in the painting. That way I know that the colors are really going to tie together and all work well with each other. So that's just a good tip if you want to make a, if you want to have a background or a base tone that will work with everything, you can utilize the, your dominant colors in the painting to create something that'll work. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to load my brush with that custom color plus a bunch of white on my brush. I'm going to start my painting at the top with both of these colors on my brush. I'm using a left to right kind of brush stroke, and then as I work my way down the canvas, I'm just going to pick up my custom lavender color. So this way what'll happen is this background will get darker and darker as it travels down the canvas. And then by the time I'm down at the bottom, it'll be nice and dark, and it's going to provide me with a natural kind of atmospheric dimension, because I had it a little bit lighter up at the top, which is going to be where I want the painting to have some lightness up to the top. And yours doesn't have to have the same type of gradient in it that mine does, but it just helps to kind of set the stage or the foundation of the rest of the painting. And because this is my background, and I know that I'm going to be having a whole bunch of other elements on top of this, I am not concerned about having perfect coverage. I can have streaks, I can have spots that are lighter or darker than one another, I am going to be having lots of fluffy clouds and a beautiful bright light source and all kinds of other elements that are going to be on top of this. You're not even going to notice the paint texture. You won't notice anything else. So if you do have some lighter spots, you can certainly just let them ride. But if you want to have a kind of a consistent thickness to the paint, what I like to do is just kind of go back and forth before I go on to the next step. This way it'll kind of level out all of the paint and give me a more kind of consistent feel to it. And then if you want it to blend in a little bit more, you can certainly kind of just work that paint into each other as it's drying. And then we're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting our light source. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. I'll be using white, yellow, orange, my lavender that I created, plus my blue. I do recommend that before you start this step that you want to make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry. Or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding my light source in this vicinity. I've got mine, if this is about my halfway point, I'll be up a little bit from that and over to the right. That's where the brightest of the bright spot is going to be. And I want it to look like it's splaying out and it's got these light beams all coming out and that it's also kind of glowing too. So that's where my yellows and my oranges are going to come into play. So it'll look like it's glowing. I'm going to be incorporating white in my center, and then I'm going to be kind of pulling it out in this starburst type of way. I will have it a little bit darker over in this top left-hand corner. This is where I'll be using my original purple plus some blue to make it a little bit darker over here. And I'm just going to kind of make those colors glow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with white paint on my brush. I'm going to put my light source in place somewhere in through this vicinity. You don't really need to make it into like a sun or anything like that, just some sort of area. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling this color out. I don't want it to splay too much down into the bottom. I'm actually going to be using this bottom area as just a light area. We're going to be putting additional kind of light beams coming out later, but this is just kind of bringing down my light kind of sky area down to about this area. We're not going to touch the bottom right now. This is just going to make it look like it's behind the gate. And so I'm just kind of using that white, pulling it out like this. I like to use these firmer brushes because it allows me to kind of pull it out as far as I want to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking up my white plus my background lavender. So white plus my lavender, and then I'm going to start intermingling these colors in between. So this is going to give me some various tones of this light color, and it'll make it look like it's really blending in well with that background. So this way it almost eliminates that back and forth brush stroke that we did initially and allows it to look like it is really just the light coming from this light source that is illuminating this area. So again, I'm just picking up my lavender plus white at this point just to kind of get these to intermingle. And then once I've got this done, what I'm going to do, just kind of making sure it works its way into here, I'm going to put little bit of darkness up here. So I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm picking up some of my ultramarine blue and my lavender color, and I'm going to kind of reverse this area in through here. So because I'm using the blue as well, this is also going to help complement my clouds that I put down below, because I'm going to want some nice soft blues in there. So you can really colorize this whatever way is speaking to you. You don't have to do the same exact color theme or scheme that I'm doing. You could do pinks, you could do oranges, you could do just a grayscale, whatever works for you. So now that I've got that done, I am going to wash and dry my brush. I want to come back into that center area and start adding the glow to the light. So I'm washing and drying my brush. And even if your paint is still wet in here, it's okay. You're just going to kind of work it all in with each other. So I'm starting back with just white paint, and I'm going to go right back into that center, just kind of give myself another soft layer on top of it and start pulling it out. And again, even if those colors underneath are wet, it's okay. Just kind of work them all into each other. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking up a tiny bit of my yellow. The yellow can really overpower the painting, so you just kind of use it with caution and proceed with caution with it. If you can have as much or as little as you want. I'm going to add some more lightness on top of it, but right now just kind of adding it in here. And if you had a lot of blue that you went through, you might detect a little bit of green, which is okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange without washing my brush and intermingle some of that orange in there as well. So again, you can get this as light or as dark as you want. You can make it as vibrant as you want. Totally up to you how you're feeling these colors. You could definitely make it, you know, almost look real sunsetty or whatever is working for you. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to wash my brush again so I can layer in some more white on top of this. So I'm washing and drying my brush again, and I'm picking up just white paint. So you might find that during this process that you may feel that you want to wait during this layering kind of process. If you want your colors to dry a little bit more, definitely wait, or just do as I do and layer them on top of each other. I might add a little bit more orange in a second. I might add a little bit more yellow. Whatever is speaking to me in the brightness category, I'm gonna do. So I really want the center to be the brightest, but I also want all of these other edges to look nice and bright too. I just picked up a little bit more orange because I feel like I want it. So I'm just gonna kind of keep layering this until I get it as bright as I want, pulling these out as much as I want towards the sides, and then I'll probably let it dry for a minute, see if I want to do anything else on top of it, and if I do, I will, and if I don't, I'm going to leave it the way that I want. So that's what I recommend you do as well. Right now I'm picking up yellow and white to add a little bit more glow up and through here, and I just kind of keep layering it with my white, yellow, and orange until I've got as much of a glow as I want in through here. And then we're going to use the same brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful light source on here, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the first layer to our clouds. So this is going to be the bottom area, and it's going to start kind of wrapping up the sides in through here. So I don't want to overdo it because I know I'm going to have another layer of lighter, fluffier clouds that I'm going to put on later. I really just want this to start my process, so when I go to put my gate on, I'll have a little bit of evidence of the clouds behind the gate and in front of it. So I'm going to be using predominantly my dark or my lavender color that we pre-mixed, plus blue and white. And we'll add all the other colors onto it later. So I'm going to start with my lavender plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint. So the trick is you don't need a lot of white paint. I'm going to have it lighter up in this area, and then it's going to kind of go darker down here and maybe a little bit lighter up and through there. So I have my purple plus a little bit of white, and really this is also just kind of giving you that softness to the paint, so it allows it to look really more like clouds as opposed to just a flat coat of paint going across the whole thing. So just a little bit on my brush with the lavender plus a little bit of white. And again, when I say a little bit of white, I've just got a teeny tiny bit on my brush. And again, this is just to give me the evidence of the texture kind of the clouds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit more white. So I've got my lavender and I've got a little bit more quantity of white on the brush. And then I can start to kind of bring this down a little bit further and maybe bring it up a little bit on these edges. So this way, again, it kind of overlaps in front of maybe my light source a little bit. I'm gonna do the same thing over here on the left-hand side. So I have my lavender plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint on my brush, just kind of giving myself a little bit of the evidence of these clouds, maybe in front of the light source. You can even overlap it a little bit in through here. So right now I'm picking up a little bit more white. I haven't washed my brush, so I still have a tiny bit of that lavender, but I've got a little bit more white on my brush. And what I'm going to do is just kind of rub in kind of on this horizon line. Again, just a little bit of fluffiness to give it the airiness of it looking like clouds. So even if I've got a little bit of wet paint going on up in through here, and just kind of breaking up the streaks of that with the rubbing of the evidence of clouds, that's going to make it look nice and natural and give it this beautiful airiness to it. And then what I'm going to do is, as I come down further, I'm going to start incorporating a tiny bit of blue. So I have my lavender and blue and a little bit of white paint on my brush. So again, this is going to be something that helps to tie all of these colors together. It'll tie that blue in up top. And again, I'm not going for anything really detailed right now, just kind of giving myself the option, the color options, and giving the softness to the clouds themselves. I just, right now, I'm kind of alternating between my lavender, my blue, and a teeny tiny bit of white paint. Doing an entire second coat on this bottom area. Make sure I've got all of my areas covered, so that way I don't ever have to worry about, you know, making sure that the rest of the painting is covered throughout the rest of the process. This step will definitely take care of that. And then we are going to be using our piece of chalk for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can add any little extra bits of clouds floating by back here that you want, and then you'll just take this brush, put it away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for the gate. I'm going to be using my piece of chalk, and I am going to also use my brush as a measuring tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through a series of dots, and we're going to connect the dots. You can certainly make your gate into whatever design that you want. I'll give you some cues as to how I'm going to build mine so it's kind of symmetrical on both sides, but you can certainly build yours whatever way that you'd like. I'm making mine into like a wrought iron fence with some decorative elements, and you can certainly make yours similar, but you can also change your decorations whatever way that you want as well. So I'm going to have mine opening up towards this light source in through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find about halfway point on the top side of my canvas, and I'm going to come down about 4.5 inches. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a marker. Actually, let me do mine in pencil so you can see it better on camera. So there we go. There's going to be my first little marker. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over about 4 inches and make myself a mark at about the same distance from as I did here. So this is where my measuring tool will come into place, so I can put them exactly at the same height. I can use my measuring tool to see how far down I did this one, and then come over as far as you want. I'm going to come over about 4 inches and make myself a marker at about the same height. So of course you could use your chalk, but I think for camera purposes, my pencil in these light areas is going to make it a little bit easier for you to see. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, I would say, if this is about my halfway point, I'm a couple of inches below that. That's going to be the bottom side of this one. So I know that I'm at about halfway point in my canvas. So, but if you needed to measure however far over you came here, just make sure that you're the same distance from the edge to here as well. And then again, going to do the same exercise with how far away I did it from the bottom of my canvas, and I'll come over about 4 inches to the right and make myself another marker. So now I have 4 markers, and I'm just going to connect the dots. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do 2 vertical lines to connect my dots, and that's going to give me the inside edge of the gate of the 2 opening doors. Then I'm going to do a similar exercise to get the exterior edges. So I'm going to have my exterior ones just down maybe about 1/2 of an inch from here, and then I'm almost about halfway between this pole and the edge of my canvas. So somewhere about in through here. Again, it's right on a nice light area. So let me put it somewhere in this vicinity so you can see. And then I'll do the same exercise with I got so many tools in my hand right now to see how far away from the edge of my canvas I did that. And I'm going to come down. I'm just a little bit below here, like maybe about 1/2 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. So somewhere in through here. I'm going to connect these 2 right now before we do this the other side, just so we can have, so we don't get lost. So something like that. And I'll do a similar exercise over on the left-hand side. So I'm going to come to the left of this about as wide as I did here. It can be a little bit off because they might be at different angles, but somewhere about there. And then about 1/2 of an inch below here. So give myself a mark and then do the same thing. You could actually just measure it from this line. That would be fine because it's a closer line. So about there, come down to here, and then drop it down maybe about 1/2 of an inch. Something like that. And then give myself a vertical line. I'm going to connect the bottoms with just a diagonal line like this. So that'll be a nice, easy, simple line to connect. And then the top lines, I'm going to actually connect, or for the top edge of it, I'm going to connect these 2 with kind of a wavy type of a line. So I'm going to come down this one maybe about 1 inch. Get my pencil so you can see it. About 1 inch. Come down here about 1 inch. And then I'm going to come down these sides about 2 inches and make myself, so 1, 2 inches. And again, yours doesn't have to be perfect. And maybe you can measure it from here. So about 2 inches, whatever you did on this side. Come at about the same distance on this side. And then you connect here to here and here to here. I'm going to do a wavy kind of scalloped type of line, but you could do just a diagonal line. You could really make it into whatever is visually appealing to you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same kind of thought process down here. I'm going to come down from here, maybe about 1 inch. And then I'm going to be, if this is about halfway up or down my canvas, I'm a little bit below that. So with these 2, I'm just going to connect with a little bit of a wavy line. And then the bottom edge here, I'm just going to go horizontally off the side of my canvas like that. And then on this side, again, I'll come down about as far as I did from here to here. So that's almost about 1 inch somewhere in through here. I just seem to be going right on my light areas. So something like that. And this one is just going to kind of disappear in the clouds. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of do a horizontal line in through here, and then up here I'm going to try and mimic this little curve like that. So just kind of down and then out like that. And again, over here is going to just get hidden. If you want to close it off, you certainly could, just for purposes of us making lines later, but this is totally fine. And that's all I'm going to be doing for the outline of my, actually, let's do one more line. I'm going to do another kind of brace line in through here. So I'm going to come up from here, maybe about 2 inches, and up from here about 2 inches, and give myself a diagonal line similar to this, and then do the same thing over here. This is about 2 inches, and then up about 2 inches. There we go. That should be enough guidelines for us to start the painting process. So I'm going to be using my small brush for the next step, so you can make any adjustments in through here that you feel are necessary. Put your drawing utensils down, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for our gate. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my dark lavender plus black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself just a really dark complementary color. You could certainly just use black or anything that you'd like, but I want something to be nice and complementary, so I'm going to just take my dark lavender and I added a little bit of black to it. So this is my dark lavender and just a teeny tiny bit of black to it, just to make it Definitely darker than the original version, but I'm not going for full-on black. It might appear to be almost black by the time it dries, but you know, just making it a little lighter than black. So then what I'm going to do also, I'm going to thin out my paint with a little bit of water. So I add these little droplets of water into my paint to thin it out just a little bit. This helps me to get cleaner, thinner lines and more controlled lines. So you can certainly thin yours out with liquid medium, or you can go for it as it is in its thick stage, but you might find it a little bit difficult to get long lines. So having it a little bit thinned out, you'll be able to kind of pull that line a little bit further. And you can always add more paint too. So if during this thinning process it turns a little translucent or transparent, that's okay. Do a layer, let it dry, and then you can do another layer on top of it, because you're inevitably going to want to do a little cleanup on this anyways once you get it done, unless you're using a ruler or a marker or something like that. Then you can get it nice and clean. So really how I'm going to start is I'm just going to paint right over my chalk marks. So I am just watching my chalk mark and painting right over it. Again, you could make yours much different than mine. I'm just going for a nice kind of decorative type of wrought iron type of fence, but you could make yours any which way that you want. You might have seen one that has maybe made out of stone or some kind of different building type of material, so you could really incorporate this whatever, you know, to whatever visual place that you want. And again, right now I am just following my chalk marks, and if during this process where I'm following my chalk marks there's any, I want to leave any of that chalk mark visible, because for maybe I don't want to make my paint line as thick as the chalk line, I can leave the chalk there and then just erase the chalk after the paint has dried, because it erases really easily with water. So I can certainly erase it after that point. So again, just kind of following my chalk and trying not to get my hand in chalk or wet paint. And I am using a thinner brush so I can have control over the thickness of my lines. So I can, if I want to, I can press a little bit harder and get it a little bit on the wider side, but off the bat, I'm trying to get these more slender lines, so I'm using this more slender type of brush to accomplish that. And because I use the water or liquid medium in my paint, it allows the moisture to stay within my bristles, which allows me to get these long continual marks. So if the paint is not fluid enough, you might find that either you run out of paint quickly, or you get like dry type of lines where the paint appears to kind of be skipping and has evidence of it not completely filling in, you know, kind of sinking into the grooves of the canvas. If you're going through this and you can't see the difference between the color of your gate and your background, you might want to add a touch more black to it to make sure that you can see the contrast between those two, so it becomes visible. If we are going to be doing a little bit of a highlight on the fence later too, which will make it even more visible, but if you want that darkness to show and to have some nice contrast next to the clouds that are behind it, just make sure that it in fact is dark enough. And so once I've got this base kind of framework done, then I get to start decorating this whatever way that I want. I'm going to do a lot of vertical lines that are going to almost look like fence posts. So how I like to kind of do my fence posts is in a symmetrical kind of way. If I'm not using a ruler, what I like to do is just kind of make little tick marks. I will eyeball like the halfway mark, and then halfway between that, and then I just kind of keep making halfway marks, so that it easily gives you a kind of a symmetrical way to do it without having to measure it. So if I eyeball kind of halfway between here halfway between here, and then just do a little halfway between those two. I'm doing as many as you want. So I had my center here, and then 3 over here, and then 3 over there. And then I do the same thing on the bottom. So I've got kind of halfway here, here. I make these little tick marks. Up at the top, I'm going to have a little scalloped kind of, my posts are going to be sticking out the top. So that's okay that I went above that. And then I can just connect my dots. So as long as I'm not going to go through wet paint here, here we go. So I'm going to start up, maybe I'll do this one first. Start in through here, and then I watch for my next mark. So I keep my eye on the prize, which is the mark at the bottom for me, and that helps me to kind of steer my brush in that direction. So hopefully I won't run my hand through wet paint. You can also turn your canvas sideways. Sometimes when you're doing these kind of lines, working from the side helps. You could, of course, draw them out with pencil first, but you can see sometimes I just kind of like to go for it. So again, just kind of keeping my eye on the prize, which is that other marker, just helps me to kind of keep my brush going in the right direction. And I'm not terribly concerned if they don't work out perfectly, because I know that I'm going to have the advantage of putting clouds in front of them later. If anything doesn't work out the way that I had planned, I can kind of disguise it with a cloud. So I know that that is always an opportunity for me when doing stuff like this. Or if I was doing like a fence in a landscape, I could use grass to hide any imperfections. So there's always a way out. Or you could always, you know, paint over it if something happens that you didn't expect. And just trying to keep my hand out of here, looking for wet paint so I don't run my hand through it. And again, just keeping my eye on the prize, which is that other marker. And because I'm using the moisture on my brush, it is allowing me to get almost a continual, oops, that one was a little crooked. Great place for a scalloped edge or a nice cloud to go in front of that one. That's the joy of working from the side like I'm working right now, but no worries, we're just gonna roll with it. And then now that I've got that one done, these guys in through here, again, if I wanna just make sure that I've got equal kind of spacing, I do the same exercise, but these are a little bit shorter lines, so I start at the middle. That one's only gonna be a partial one over there, but again, it just helps me to give myself equal kind of spacing. This one's gonna have a lot of them on it, but something like this. I think I have an extra line somewhere. I think this one and this one are extra lines. Something like that. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. Center, center, center. Okay, that's kind of working here. And again, if I screwed up, I'll figure it out right here when I go to connect them. So I'm going to connect this one to this one. I'm at a little bit different of an angle right now, so it's gonna, maybe if I stand over here, there we go. This is a good angle, so right here. And then again, I'm just gonna connect my top to my bottom. And if I have extra posts or not enough posts, that's all right. Only you and I will notice. And then what I'm gonna do for that little one over on the other side is I'm just gonna kind of pick a halfway, or you know, a halfway point over there, and it should give me similar lines. And of course you could measure it out and do them all 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch away from each other. Whatever works for you. This looks like it's going to be a pretty good spot, maybe in through here. Let's go like this. 1, 2. That should work for me. And then 1, 2, and then 1, 2. So again, just kind of visually giving yourself that top and the bottom will help you to not make your lines super slanted, which I think happens a lot of time when we're doing these type of vertical lines. And again, they're not totally even. So then what I'm going to do is decorate it with whatever way that I want. So I want to have two really big posts right in through here, so they're kind of like the brace of the frame for it. So I'm going to decorate it. I'm going to come down maybe about an inch from here, give myself a little bit wider of a post in through here. That'll be kind of the top. Maybe I'll have a little bit of a ball of sorts in through here. And then whatever I do on one side, I'll do on the other side. So I know that I just widened this post right here. So I'm just going to make sure that I bring this all the way down and just kind of widen this post, because I want this to look like it is the structure, or the nice thick part of the fence that is holding the gate up and firm, and it's more of the the foundation, so to speak, of the gate. So that works for me in that one. I'll do the same thing over on this side. So I came down about an inch, widened that in through there, gave myself some kind of decorative ball of sorts in through there, and then just widened the width of this one particular post. And then I'll do a whole bunch of little decorative elements on the main gate, so that way it makes it look maybe a little bit more ornate, and it gives it a little bit more of a beauty type of an element, or a decorative, or maybe a symbolic way, if you are of a certain either religion or where you live culture. You could certainly add things that are personal to you. So on the top of here, I'm just going to put maybe these little almost like an upside down triangle to give that a specific type of look on these two big pieces in through here. And then down in through here, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of scrolly marks, but I want to make sure that I have like a handle opening too. So I'm going to just kind of take this one in through here and give myself a little bit of a swirl. And whatever I do on one side, I'm going to attempt to do something similar on the other side. So again, going to kind of come up at the same height in through here, going to come to this second one in through here, and then just kind of wrap this around. And again, this is another thing that you could pencil in if you wanted to, or you could do a second coat, whatever works for you. And then I'm going to just play with it a little bit and give myself maybe a little decoration up in the top here, a little decoration 1, 2, 3 up and through here. It's tough to go backwards. So sometimes, oh, I just went the wrong way. Let's go like this. And there we go. We saved it. We went the right way after I noticed I was going the wrong way. And then just kind of whatever you want. I'm doing a whole bunch of little swirls. And again, I'm just kind of considering this to be a beautiful wrought iron fence that somebody paid a lot of attention to when they were building it. Maybe this in through here kind of comes from this corner and down here, and then just swoops down and through there, and then trying to do the same thing over on this side, kind of down in through here, swoops and down like that. And then feel free to make any other little decorations that you want. We're going to be using, or making your lines straighter, we're going to be using this same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to add the highlights to our gate and fence. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my dark gray that I used for the gate plus white. So really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some quick swipes of this these two colors on my brush on the side where I feel the light source is. So on this side of the fence, on the posts, I'll be doing on the left side, and then on these top and squirrely pieces, I'll be doing it on the top side. You don't have to do it perfect. This is, you can utilize your own thought process throughout this. I just really want to add some dimension to it. I'm not doing it to look like a photograph, so I don't necessarily need all of my highlights and shadows to be in exactly the correct place, but you can certainly play with yours as much as you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of my dark purple or my dark grayish purple plus a tiny bit of white paint on my brush. And again, you can use a little bit of water on your brush too if you'd like to. That'll help with the process. So what I'm going to do, so if I'm doing this post in through here, I just kind of add a quick light little highlight over there on the left hand side, and I just kind of pull it down. I'm not, again, worried about it being perfect. I'm going to do my posts first because I think they're going to be easier to do, and then I'll do the opposing or the decorative other area. So I'm doing in between these rails, or I don't know if that's the tops and the bottoms. And then what I'm going to do is I will do just a little bit like this, kind of in between. So that way it looks like those have kind of cast a shadow on that piece. But again, you don't have to go in as much detail as I'm doing when it comes to these little pieces in through here. Just adding that bit on those top sides or in between will make it look more natural, but you could do a continuous line. It's totally up to you, again, how much involved that you want this to be, but theoretically, if there is a piece of the gate, it would cast a shadow on the thing next to it, so that way from that light source. So just keeping those kind of things. If you want them there, great. If not, you can do just continual lines like I just accidentally did. But again, no big deal. Wherever your brush takes you, usually that's the best place to go, because that's going to be the most natural place when you're doing stuff like this. And again, those little gaps in between will make it look a little bit more natural if you can just put the highlight in between those. And then I just kind of keep cruising along. When I go into this lighter area, I most likely am not going to see a lot of that highlight, simply because it's going to be next to the light source. So I'm not really going to be terribly concerned if I don't have it exactly in the perfect spot, but I'm really just kind of going quickly through it. This also helps to clean up some of the crooked edges. If you have any little crooked edges, that can certainly help to make it a little bit more straight looking. And then you just fiddle with it until you feel like you've got enough on there. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So again, I've got my dark gray plus white on my brush at the same time, and I'm just going to kind of go through. This one would get a full one down the side because it's got nothing blocking it. And then I just kind of, I think I'm going to start up in through here, maybe a little bit more white so we can see it on my brush. And this is a great tool, especially when you get into these darker regions, if you had some areas that were not as visible because maybe your fence is a similar color to the clouds behind it, then this is one of those steps that will help to make it pop out a little bit more. And again, just kind of cruising down here and kind of skipping where those decorative pieces are. And if you bump into them, that's okay. You can either make a correction or just roll with it, because again, we're not going for perfection here. We're just going to enjoy the process. And on my wonky line here, I can kind of help to make that a little bit slender with this highlight. So that will help to steer the viewer into believing that it's a straighter line than it really is. So those are great ways to kind of make corrections. If you don't want to repaint the whole thing, you can just kind of use those highlights and shadows strategically in order to explain to the viewer that it is straighter than it really is. And then again, I'm just kind of adding these little highlights and stuff in between where I feel that it would be catching the light a little bit. This will be over on the right hand side. I'm going to just kind of pull this down. I think I need a little bit more paint on my brush to give myself a nice smoother highlight in through here. Maybe a little bit more of my darker color. Oops, that's a little bit too much on my brush. And again, if you do something that is maybe too light or too dark, just let it dry for a minute. You can always paint over it. That's another beautiful thing about acrylic paint, is once it dries, you've got the opportunity to just kind of go back and make corrections or adjustments to it, because it dries quickly, and you can just do anything that you need to right on top of it. And again, just kind of going right down along this side in through here, making sure I hit that whole other side. And you know, I know that as I'm going through this process that some of my lines might be lighter, some might be darker. Again, I'm just going for an illusion to make this look believable to the viewer. I don't need it to be perfect, because nothing in this world is perfect. And as we're going through this process, you know, just giving the right information, even if it's in a non-perfect execution, it makes it believable. It makes it look like it's got the dimension that we want it to. It, you know, and maybe it looks a little bit more painterly because we've got, you know, possibly some imperfections in it, and it's been created by somebody's hand and not a machine. So I just enjoy having those flaws because it makes it more real and it makes it more mine. And then once I've got this done, I'm going to be switching back to my large brush. So make any little adjustments that you want. You can put this small brush away, take out your large brush, and oops, I missed this one up here. And then you can get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our clouds and our light source. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are white, yellow, orange, my dark lavender, and blue. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be starting with my light source, because I really want the concentration of brightness to be right here. I want it to look like everything is just being pulled into that area. So I'm going to add a little bit more brightness to my light source, and I'm also going to pull it out and kind of overlap it onto the edges of the gate a little bit. And then I'm going to start brightening up my clouds coming in through here, and then I'll just add the rest of my airiness to them, hide the bottom of my fence. But as I'm doing this, I am going to be using very little bit of paint on my brush. I can always add more if I need more, but I want to maintain kind of the airiness and the translucency, so I'm using a tough brush, a firm brush, where I can kind of scrub on my paint and it'll make it look nice and translucent and have lots of airiness to it. So I'm going to start with a teeny tiny bit of white paint on my brush, just a teeny tiny bit, and I'm going to start right in the center of my light source. I'm going to put my little bit of white paint in through there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of just pulling it out just a little bit in front of my gate. I don't need much. I just want there to be the evidence of these beams of light maybe crossing in front of that gate door, which makes it look like, you know, it's just kind of being pulled in. And then as I come down, I've got a little bit of that white on my brush, and I'm just going to start to give it that fluffy cloud type of look. So again, just kind of pulling this out a little bit in front of the gate, and now I'm going to start making my way down here. As I make my way down here, I'm going to kind of go slowly with it and build my way to the light. So I know that I just used white, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up a white plus a teeny tiny bit of blue paint on my brush at the same time. So this is going to give me kind of a bluish airiness to these clouds in through here. And again, I'm not going full on at the moment. I'm really just kind of give myself build these in a little bit of a layered type of a way, just so it maintains that dimensional element to them. So again, right now, just picking up a little bit of white plus blue, and that's gonna give me, again, kind of like the sky colors, I guess, starting to be represented in, you know, traditional blue sky kind of colors being represented, bringing some over in through here, maybe a couple little light ones up in through here, hiding the bottom of my fence a little bit, not all the way. You don't have to look like you're meaning to hide it on purpose, just a little bit, like the clouds are drifting by. I'm going to pick up, I want to finish this bottom area here and then come back and add some more brightness in through there. So I'm going to pick up some of my dark lavender plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint. So dark lavender plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint, and going to give myself a little bit more of this airiness coming in through here. And I'm really just kind of using a scrubbing or a circular scumbling type of brush stroke. So this way it gives you that that soft roundness to these clouds, as opposed to dotting, where that would give you a lot of speckles, or doing like a left to right, that would give you longer brush strokes. I'm really trying to emulate almost like that, just the airiness to it and the roundness that is associated with the shape of a fluffy cloud. So again, I'm kind of keeping my bottom edges a little bit darker, so it almost kind of drifts away in through that area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of my lavender, white, and a touch of orange. So I have lavender, white, and orange on my brush, and I'm going to start incorporating a little bit more of this glow from the clouds or from the light source. So just a little bit of that in through there. And again, you can see I'm not doing a lot at a time because I just want to build this in a slow manner. I've got white plus a little bit of my orange in through here. And you might find that you really, you know, once you get into some of these colors like the orange, that you love that and you really want to incorporate more. Maybe you want more in your clouds back up and through here. Like I feel like I want them to be a little bit lighter. So I just, on my dirty brush, picked up a tiny bit more white paint. And I'm going to add just a bit more on top of these, just to almost kind of encapsulate my my gate. And I'm just kind of looking around before I start adding those real light areas. Maybe now I just picked up a little bit more of my lavender and white, just to, again, just looking to add these soft edges to these clouds over in through here. And you can see I'm not going fast. I'm really just looking for my color pattern. I want them to be a little bit lighter up at the top, so I just picked up a little bit of white on my dirty brush. And as I'm going towards, now I'm kind of really just kind of creeping towards that center area. I'm just kind of bringing these clouds a little bit brighter and brighter towards that light source. A little bit more white is going on my brush now to kind of get these to almost overlap as if they're drifting into the light. So right now I'm just picking up on my dirty brush a little bit more white. And again, I have hardly any paint on my brush. I really just want to give the illusion of these clouds just kind of making their way or being pulled towards that light source. And if you ever come to a point where you just have too much paint on your brush, wash and dry it. You don't have to muscle through this without washing your brush. I tend to go a long way without washing my brush because I control the quantity of paint on my brush. But if you haven't done this before and you're running into times where, you know, everything is just kind of muddling together and it's just not working out the way that you had planned, then it might be time for you to wash and dry your brush. I just picked up a little bit of white and orange to get a little bit more of this glow in through here. I'll probably use a little bit of yellow in a minute as well. But again, I just want this to feel like it's glowing and that we're being brought right into the center of that. I think I am actually going to, in a second here, wash and dry my brush. Maybe just pull a little bit more of this orange in through here. And this is, yeah, I'm almost at the place where I feel like I'm just kind of fiddling a little bit, but I will wash and dry my brush in a minute. I just picked up some blue and white just to get these colors to softly get into this interior. So I'm washing and drying my brush right now. So I want to get a little bit more vibrancy in through here. And I know that I have lots of other colors on my brush. So again, I don't want to muddle it, so I just washed and dried my brush. I'm going to put white with a tiny bit of yellow paint. Be careful with the yellow in this stage because the yellow can really easily take over. So just a tiny bit of that yellow is going to really add some beautiful brightness, but you just got to control that yellow. Just don't put too much on there. And I'm just, again, adding these tiny little fluffy clouds making their way towards that bright light, and then I would just sit here and fiddle. I feel like I'm in the fiddling stage right now because I've got everything in place where I want it. Just picked up a tiny bit of orange and now just going to kind of work in that glowy stuff, maybe a little bit more brightness here or there, maybe a little bit more of my brightness on the clouds coming in the center, and then I'll let it dry and fiddle with it if a little bit more if I feel it's necessary. And then we have one tiny little step left to go, and it'll be with your small brush. So once you've got your beautiful clouds finished here and you've got your entry to your magical place all completed, you can wash and dry, or actually put this large brush away. Of course, not, I'm telling you, I'm in fiddle stage right now. I might have a really hard time stopping, but once you've stopped, you can put this large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going to go bottom left on this one, and I'm going to be using white and my dark lavender. I wanted to kind of be disguised in my clouds here. So white and my dark lavender. So I like to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your full name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like. It's your painting. You get to sign it however you'd like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful heavenly image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.